that mean you need to clap again?
Yeah, I just need to clap again. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All good?
Yeah, I'm recording now, yeah. I was recording before.
I
think you're...
Hello? You've just hung up on me. It's like we're really experienced podcasters. Fuck.
Fucking answer my call. I'm going to have to edit all of this out. First of all, right, that was my fault. Oh. Second of all, why won't you pick up my fucking calls? Why has it always got to be, I'm phoning you?
Because it wasn't coming up on my phone, it was only coming up on my iPad.
And why do you think I'm phoning you? Because the same thing was happening to me.
Did you want to clap again for like the 23rd time?
Oh no, I did it again!
What is going on?
I don't know. I think it's because I'm on my iPad Mini.
It's because you're unemployed for 2 days, right?
Because I'm unemployed. Right, I'm going to press this button now. Right, you've
Which
gone.
button?
That's so I can't see you. Now
I'm going to press. I think maybe. Wait, hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to clap. I'm going to pull out the plug. See, but does this cause it to? No. Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing. Oh.
We could have an entire episode that's just this. I think that would really test the commitment of our 7 listeners.
It really would. Also, that phone call was coming through to my watch, and my watch is not on my wrist, it's in the other room, and Bob was going, "What's that noise? Why is that noise making that noise?" It's because Simon won't pick up the fucking wire.
Whoa.
I know. Do you know what happens when I'm unemployed? I get very angry.
Do you? So lucky this period of unemployment is only going to be 2 days.
I know.
How do you feel? I mean, it is the elephant in the room, really, isn't it? You're finished. You're in between jobs. Again.
I'm in between jobs. Again. This time for only a brief 48-hour window. I feel it's ever so strange.
What's the it there? Which part?
It is the sensation of being... It feels... There was a relative amount of fanfare in the sense that we went out for a meal on Thursday night, which was the eve of my last day. And then on my last day, I was like doing lots of vivas and marking and making sure that as much as I possibly could.
It did sound like you were singing Christmas carols, 3 lovely vivas, 2, da-da-da.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Actually, no, it felt more like I was trying desperately to paper over the cracks in a dam. Because, there's that sense of... Well, working in any kind of organisation is ongoing, isn't it?
Yes, I guess so.
You never finish it. You might finish tasks, but you don't finish, the work is never done. Anyway, so I was just like running around all day yesterday, and I left and my colleagues said goodbye, and it was lovely and touching, but also there was a sense that it was the same people that I say goodbye to most times that I leave. I suppose it felt final, but it also felt exactly like any other Friday that I leave.
Well, yes,
that weird
thing.
I
see what you mean. As opposed to all the other jobs you've left, it's different. Yes,
I think the other jobs have felt weirdly more final. So it's odd. So it feels a bit odd.
You must be getting a really fantastic collection of cufflinks or handkerchiefs.
I'm really delighted to say that the gifts I get are often consumable, which is delightful. I got a lovely bottle of wine, or living. I got a lovely plant, or and then some really nice things for the wall and things like that. But
they could have got you some rocket, and you could have had edible plants, consumable plants.
would have been lovely as well. But I'm very grateful for the plant I did get. It was given to us, as in me and Bob, by a VFL.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
A VFL. Is that
very faithful listener?
Oh, I was thinking it was some like Pro Vice Chancellor, PVC, or... I'm not good with acronyms. I
always find PVC such an odd acronym. Does it not make you just think of like somebody in squeaky clothes when you hear PVC?
It does, actually, now that I think about it.
I don't want to know what you do at the weekend.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a film in which someone's wearing really tight leather pants and there's a sort of a sound that they make as they're walking. I know there's a film. You probably know who started it and who directed it.
You won't have seen the first season of American Horror Story, Murder House, because it's too scary for you. But there is famously throughout a man in a gimp suit.
Of course.
Who is both squeaky...
Show title, there is famously throughout a man in a gimp suit.
And, he's upsetting. But squeaky, too. He's like halloumi. I don't find halloumi upsetting. I don't know why I said that.
Sorry, I haven't had halloumi in a long time. Yeah, but let's not go down the cheese road.
Have you become vegan?
No, let's not go down the cheese. No, it's just I don't tend to. We are pretty. We've talked about this before. You and I are pretty big on not buying food that comes in packaging.
Yes, and halloumi is nearly always in packaging.
It's nigh impossible.
By nearly, I mean always.
Always, yeah. I've never gone to a store where they have like big chunks of halloumi that they cut off and put into a.
Certainly not in the UK.
No, I imagine in Cyprus.
I guess they're just like throwing it through your window.
Yes, I do. I remember going to Cyprus for some diving, and I remember...
I thought you were going to say for some halloumi.
And, it might as well have been. I think I ate at least twice my body weight in halloumi. It was quite extraordinary.
How do you feel about feta? I mean, not kind of globally and plasticky, as in, because that similarly comes in
like
packaging,
the taste.
But, yeah. Are you a feta man?
I love
or
feta.
A feta fan?
I'm a feta fan. I tend to like those fresh cheeses like that.
Queijo fresco, as they call it in Portugal.
What do they call it? Queijo
fresco. Fresh cheese.
All right.
And it's a type of very, very light, very fresh cheese. There's a factory... I say a factory, it's a shed just down the road from my mum and dad where you swing in and buy your queijo fresco in a bag or take a bowl with you.
I've made ricotta quite a bit, right?
I like how you then I
had to correct myself.
You clawed the word back from your anglicised mouth.
I did.
Went, I must remember to say it like I can.
Well, it's also because I've just come out of this bloody, a lesson really where... it's a conversation in which her name is Pamela, is... Pamela, as in Pamela Anderson. That's how she described it to me the first time we met.
I really love that. As in
I did laugh because it didn't help at all. I was like, that's Pamela, what are you talking about? And I still haven't quite plucked up the courage to call her Pam, because it wouldn't be Pam, it would be Palm, and it just doesn't sound right at all. But she's very strict on correcting me. So it's very hard to get through a sentence without being corrected like 4 times. And there are times when... No, actually, it doesn't frustrate me at all now because I'm very used to not being able to say a sentence without cocking up some kind of gender agreement or a plural agreement, or it's fiendishly difficult.
Your sentences will be quite complicated, though, won't they?
Yes, so there's conditionals and hypotheticals, and yeah, for sure. But still, I'm
just saying
I
this
butcher.
to
I butcher the language.
Yeah. But I just want you to feel proud of what you've achieved.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to be hard on myself. No, I'm not.
Okay,
not for a second. I'm not going, oh my god, I'm so bad at this. But
because that's my job when I'm talking about my Portuguese skills.
I thought that was your job to be really hard on me. And
oh no, Simon! I hope that's not what you think.
It's not. Actually, it's not.
I never want you to feel that way. Certainly not in earshot.
So I can't remember what I was telling, but
We were talking about ricotta.
oh yeah. So I'm used to that kind of. It's a little bit like I remember dancing in a dance company in New Zealand. It was the Douglas Wright Dance Company. For any listeners who know about dance in New Zealand, they'll all be smiling right now.
Yeah.
And Douglas Wright he's no longer alive, but he's difficult to work with. It's fair to say. But he was also like the reason I started dancing, meaning,
Wow.
and so to get into the company, to be asked to be in the company was a big deal for me. It was like, if you're a rugby player, you go, I'm in the All Blacks now. That's a sports. You got that? Yeah.
Yeah. The jumper. They've got the jumper with the little white leaf on it.
That'll do. And it was very, very difficult. It was a very difficult process, and it was clear that I was on the edge of the company. I was not. I was a full member, but I was not.
You were not being given all the solo.
Exactly. I was a bit player. That's how I remember it. But anyway, he was pretty hard on notes. Like he'd give a lot of notes, and he'd give so many notes that you'd be dancing, and we used to joke about it. And we'd joke about about registering when we'd be getting notes, meaning you'd be dancing going, I bet I get a note for that.
Yeah.
But even to the point where, for example, it even happened where you'd be doing in performances and you'd see a torch go on in the theatre in order to write down the note. I kid you not. And we basically have a running count of who'd get the most notes. And it was like, it became funny, but also at the same time, it was like a kind of self-conscious. Can you imagine when you're dancing and being so self-conscious? I mean, how could you possibly dance well I mean, for me, I'm not going to talk about the others. How could I possibly dance well if I was so preoccupied about making mistakes?
Yeah, that's curious because obviously you've been a tennis coach, you've been coached by tennis coaches, you've had that experience in relationship to sports. Is it different in something which is an interpretive art practice?
How do you mean? Do you mean that?
Well,
you mean there are not things that are right and wrong, that the outcomes are not so?
No. Well, I guess you are being coached in tennis to be the best possible player.
Yeah, improve this, improve that.
Yeah. But once you get past technique in dance, there is a level of subjectivity. I like what you are doing. I don't like what you are doing. You are not responding to my choreography the way I want you to respond to it. There isn't,
Yes, I'm in the service of.
Yeah, but there's a complexity to right or wrong in an art form like that. It's like if you get a note from a director, if you get a line reading from a director, it's kind of like, well, okay, that's good. I understand why you want to deliver that text in that way, but that might not necessarily be resonating in the way that I might want to deliver that text in how I'm interpreting the character. So there's space. So I'm just kind of thinking, is that why it is different because you had more ownership of dance? Was it different because or is it not different? I'm just curious because I haven't had those two wildly different but incredibly similar critiques laid on the same body.
Yeah, I think there's I think in the dance context, often if you're doing things on mass, meaning the whole company would be doing something in unison. If someone's doing something different, you stick out.
Yeah.
So that's we want you to do more like that, so you're less visible.
Yeah.
you might say the idea is of being being in unison, or being together, or whatever you want to say. But then there was also strange things where I don't want to bag on Douglas too much because he's dead. Also, he was amazing, and I don't but he'd also sit in the front at the center in the studio. A position that no audience member would ever sit, and he would ask you to move just a bit to the left, and you'd go a bit to the left. He goes, "Oh no, that's too much," and you go back a little bit to the left. Like we're talking inches here, and so that's a kind of like for me an inability to imagine that there are other perspectives on this dance, on this performance, and I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it. Just to be clear. I'm very excited. What?
No, I was just breathing out rhythmically. I wasn't actually laughing. I'm so sorry. It sounded like a laugh, but I was just going.
It sounded like a snigger.
No, I was just breathing out rhythmically. Sometimes I do that just because I like to pump my diaphragm. Let's not talk too much about my fondness for breath.
And so are you excited about Monday?
Yes, I'm terribly excited. Thank you, Wagatha. Which I had sent to me this week. A Rebecca Vardy thing about Peter Andre's chipolata penis.
So I have no idea about. I know that there's this court case going on, and it just breaks my heart in so many different ways. And so all I keep doing is I've had an interesting week in the sense I've been reading a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh recently. And,
lovely.
Yeah, and he's got a book called Teachings on Love, which I so recommend it. But it's really just from the perspective of one's capacity to see oneself in others, in all things. And it's such a simple idea, but I've really had an interesting week when I've effectively practicing when I've dropped into judgment, which of course happens all the time. You know, you just, for me, it's just because someone driving a big car just instantly makes me go into dickhead thinking.
Clarify, your thinking is dickhead-like, or you think they are a dickhead?
I think they are a dickhead. Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I go. It's pretty. That's quite a reflex for me.
What's the? I'm just trying to work out, because obviously we live in such different places. When you say a big car, do you mean like a 4x4, that kind of a big car?
Well, they're really, you would say, yeah, definitely, but certainly even because SUVs have got bigger and bigger. The proportion of Land Rovers in this part of London is pretty high. Like there's a lot of Teslas, which of course are not SUVs, but so it's a wealthy. Like in terms of the cars that people are driving, it's a wealthy part of the world, no question. The streets in this country are incredibly small. There's an enormous quantity of traffic on them. So much of what we do, the extraordinary resources that are taken from the planet in order to build a single car, most of which, I think I forget the data, but the time that cars are spent in use is incredibly small. Like it's like 20% of their lifetimes is spent actually in use. Mostly they sit, right? So these resources, a huge quantity of resources are plucked from the ground and stuck into something that's hardly ever used. And so it really, as teenagers would say these days, it really triggers me. And so it's been really interesting just to see myself in those people. And just to practice every time I've been doing all week, it's been such a pleasure just to see myself. And so there's little judgments as I feel them to go, is to see myself in that person and to see all those. And I don't mean it in any saintly way, but it's really humbling. It's so humbling. It's so humbling. And so when I think of Rebecca Vardy and I don't know, Ms. Rooney's...
Colleen,
thank you. Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney. When I think of them, I just feel sadness, and I see myself in their desire to be seen, to be known, to all the things that they're caught up in, you know, to be recognised. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that's slightly strange to hear, I don't know.
No, it's interesting to hear. I've not been following it either. A listener sent a link to me saying, this is interesting in light of the penis conversation you had the other week.
And this was about the chipolata?
It was about the accusation of Peter Andre's genitals being the size of a chipolata.
And so Peter Andre's got something to do with this court case?
I think at some point Peter Andre must have had sex with Rebecca Vardy.
Right.
I didn't really.
We should be careful. We don't want to defame her. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. Well, I don't. I'm also. I want Peter Andre to know that I don't have any special knowledge of his genitals.
This one goes out to you, Peter. I mean, that's clickbait, isn't it?
It really is. But I think the point, the reason it was sent to us was about that idea that once again the size of an appendage being used as a lever for cruelty.
Oh, it's horrible. It's so horrible. It's just, God.
It didn't sound particularly weird. You kind of getting to a more Buddhist way of being and trying to sit with non-judgment.
I think partly just because I think of myself as a really judgmental person. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's such a weird thing to say in the sense of how do we know how judgmental we are compared with other people? You know, because judgments are not just the things we utter, right? Given that I think that of myself, it's been really, I don't know. It just feels softer. It feels softer in the world, and I don't think as a, you know, if one thing we talk about a lot is about the kind of sort of experiences of and the nature of masculinity, and I suspect that the softer men are, I have a feeling the better things might be.
I had a lovely exchange last night with a quite drunk. He wasn't a teenager, so I guess he was in his early 20s.
Yeah,
young man.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a quite drunk young man. And he was standing outside of the local supermarket with a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. And he was wearing all of the external trappings of ruffian, rapscallion, and layabout.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was all the things that one would cross the road to avoid. This is in really big inverted commas when I say one would. Yeah. And of course he had a dangerous dog. You know, he had a Staffordshire Bull Terrier.
The most.
Yeah. So he was
signifier of danger.
Yeah. He was conforming to all of those triggers that the nice middle classes have about the white working classes in the UK.
Yeah. I share them. Just want to put my hand up. I share them.
Well,
not proud of it, but I share them.
Anyway, Bob was going in to buy some potting soil for a plant that we'd been given that needed to be potted on. So she just popped in and this was like just 9:45 at night. Obviously, this is when you do your gardening. I'd not long come home from work, and it was
I love that's the first
clear.
thing you thought to do. That you thought, we must get some potting mix now.
Well, I needed to walk. You know, I'd been in a car for 4.5 hours. I needed to stretch my legs, and Jeffy was excited because I was home, and we were just like, let's just wander down and get that sorted now. So Bob went in, and me and Jeff gravitated towards the, you know, where husbands and wives leave their dogs, usually with a person attached to them. So you get a little crowd of people standing outside of the supermarket, and this guy was there in the dog waiting area, and he clocked me straight away, and I could immediately see him wanting to talk, which isn't massively unusual for people with dogs.
Yeah. And
so I smiled, and he went, "I just want you to know she's not aggressive."
Oh.
And I was like, that's. I didn't think she was. She looks really beautiful. So could she say hello to your dog?
Oh.
Yeah, of course. So Jeff and me went over to talk to this young dog. Was called Shadow. I don't know the gentleman's name, and it was so funny because the first thing he said was,
I think Dennis. Let's call him Dennis.
He didn't look like a Dennis, but okay, let's call him a Dennis.
Dennis and Shadow.
Dennis and Shadow, and he went, I've always wanted a Dalmatian. I think I might get one when I grow. And then he just caught himself because he was clear he was going to say when I grow up. And so there was that moment where he caught himself in a moment of recognizing himself as still quite young, but also older than somebody who can say when I grow up.
That is so beautiful, Dennis.
It was lovely, and I was saying, they're quite funny dogs, and but you know they're nice. But my wife's family has always had staffies. They're such beautiful. But people think they're so aggressive. I said, well, there's no such thing as an aggressive dog. It's about how they've been socialized. In fact, a recent study just came out saying exactly that.
Really?
There's no one breed is not more aggressive than another. There's not like baked into their DNA aggression. It is absolutely about how that dog is socialized and trained. So that, you know, a Rottweiler or a Pit Bull is no more fundamentally aggressive than a Golden Retriever.
This is the You Can't Tell a Book by Its Cover episode, isn't it?
I guess it is. Yeah. So we were having a chat, and Jeff was doing that thing that Jeff does, which is to effectively ignore everything around him when Bob goes inside of his shop, and he just points himself towards the exit, and he's in this state of high alert, waiting to see the most important human in his life return.
Yeah.
And we were laughing about the fact that that Jeff wasn't really paying attention to Shadow, and Shadow was climbing up and like licking his face, and Jeff was just like, "Yes, that's very nice, Shadow. You can continue to lick my face, but I have to continue to face the door."
Doesn't he know about anyway? Go on.
No, he's not interested. He's just like, when is Bob coming home?
Yeah.
When is Bob coming home?
Yeah.
So he's got this like focus going on, and Shadow's being all adorable and lovely. And I said, I often find myself standing outside waiting for my lady. And he said, "Oh, one day I hope I'm standing outside of a supermarket waiting for my lady." Oh. And then he said, "But I'm not waiting for my lady. It's just my friend." And I misunderstood, because I thought what he meant was that there was a lady inside of the shop who was his friend, but not his lady. And one day he would like to kind of develop.
For her to be his lady.
Exactly. And I went, "Well, you never know. If you're lucky, one day the relationship might develop." And he went, "Oh, no. I don't really swing that way." But, I mean, and then he went, "But he's really, really nice."
This conversation is brilliant.
And then I said, "Well, you never know. One day you might just fall in love with him anyway." And
You said this, really? That's what you said?
Yeah. And he went, yeah, you never know. And I caught myself on just kind of going, well, this is, had we not had the dogs as a moment of contact? Because if I hadn't had Jeff with me and I'd just been standing outside,
no way.
There's absolutely no way I would have had a conversation with him. And he wouldn't have had a conversation with me, because there would have, so I'm not being too judgmental there about myself being, resistant.
My heart is swelling for young Dennis, but and particularly for when he grows up. Big shout out to Shadow. It's great to actually talk of a different dog on this podcast. I think apparently I've had a few complaints from listeners that there's too much talk of Jeffrey.
I don't think you have.
I haven't. That's true. I just made that up as well.
Yeah. So you just said that because you wanted to be a little bit judgmental. You went for a cheap gag at the expense of an innocent creature who has done nothing to you. Unlike William, who once bit your head when you were fighting with him.
That does. That seems like a really good place to finish, actually.